Hey, Nick Darr here with Business Over a Brew. Pleased to shoot this episode at the Old Bakery Beer Company here in Alton. As a lot of you know, the location where we used to shoot the show, Great Rivers Tap and Grill, decided to close down, as businesses do sometimes, and kind of left us scrambling a little bit, looking for a location to shoot our next episode. And on very short notice, we called Lauren at Old Bakery here, and she was immediately said, sure, come down and shoot it. So just very generous of them to let us use the space on such short notice to shoot the show here. It's a really terrific business. They really run a great place here at Old Bakery. And it's a good fit for our show too, because they're a great business, and obviously they serve brew and make it here. So it's a terrific place to have it. If you haven't had lunch here or dinner, I highly recommend you do that. The food is terrific. The beer selection is great bourbon selection as well. So it's just a great place to hang out in a historic building here in Alton. So come check out Old Bakery Beer, and thanks again to Lauren and everybody for letting us have the show here at Old Bakery in Alton. Welcome to Business Over a Brew. I'm your host, Nick Darr. Pleased to be joining you again from Old Bakery Beer Company here in Alton. Beautiful location. Definitely come check it out if you get a chance. We appreciate them letting us shoot the show here. Thanks to the Riverbend Growth Association for sponsoring as well. We've been doing this show for a long time now, well over 100 episodes of it, believe it or not. And I think maybe some people even watched it. They've told me they have anyway. So pleased to be joined in this episode by James Robinson, B&B Custom Teas. James, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about, let's start here with just deciding to purchase the business, because it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, it is. It just kind of came up over seeing an ad in the paper, and my wife saw the ad, took a picture of the ad, texted it to some friends of ours, and basically said, hey, here's a business if you're interested, just kind of jokingly, I think. And then several days later, it turns into, I'm going to go talk to these people. And then several days later, we were meeting for supper, and then the next night we were figuring out how much we were going to offer for the business and to buy it. So yeah, it kind of rolled quickly.
So years of planning and strategizing.
Years of planning and had a full business plan in place and everything. Yeah. No, there was nothing. there was nothing. So
talk a little bit about just your personal background growing up. Where'd you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Wood River.
Okay.
As of Sean and Tish Emmerich, the other two owners, they did also. And then my wife grew up in Grafton, went to Jerseyville schools. But we've lived in Bethalto now for about 20 years. All of us have. Sean and Tish just recently moved here to Alton several years ago, one of these condos down here. So
a little bit spur of the moment in buying the business, but had you always thought maybe about doing it someday or taking on entrepreneurship?
I had never really thought about it that much. I think Tish probably did a little bit with her side of it. Like I say, she did some cricket work and made some t-shirts and some sewing and some crafts. And my wife probably did a little bit. I always call she's a professional shopper is what I say. And so, but it comes in handy in this business because you need to know what people like. And she shops enough to know what people like. So yeah, we've all kind of got our little niche out there.
Interesting, a little different. It's obviously not a startup. Buying an established brand. Talk about how that factored into the decision to buy it.
Well, that was a big advantage to doing it. We felt, you've got an established customer base. One of the questions buying it was nothing's contractual, so those customers could come back or they couldn't. We didn't know that. So that was one of the biggest things we were looking at when we were purchasing it was. These people coming back, were these one-time sales, because we had pretty good records, and Kevin and Marsha were great that had the business before and, pretty much gave us anything we wanted as far as records to look at stuff. And, but that existing customer base is really what's driving it. We're slowly introducing new products, new services, and building a new customer base, but that rock solid base they've had for years is what's really keeping us going. So
I think selling a business, especially one that you've owned for such a long time, is such a difficult thing because there's not like a Kelley Blue Book or something for it to show you here's what it should cost, or there's not comps in the neighborhood like there is in real estate. And plus there's so much, like there is with a car or house sometimes too, just so much emotional attachment because you've bled and sweated.
Well, there was
all
a
these
bunch
years,
because like I say, they started out, I think they started out with a trailer going around doing like special events on weekends. And, once it got to a certain point, Kevin and Marsha Kevin was able to quit his job, and they did it full time. And I think it bothered Kevin when they weren't doing it. I mean, we always gave them props for a husband and wife to work side by side for 37 years and make it through that, because it was very impressive.
Well, my wife and I bought the radio stations, the media company back in June, and I joke that we bought it together, but she's really the silent partner. She's a teacher, so she doesn't and wants nothing to do with the day.
That's what I tell everybody who comes in the store. They want something done. I'm the grunt that does it, and the wives run the business for sure.
Right, exactly. It's probably better.
They make the important decisions. They tell us what to make, and we make it.
So you obviously you discuss it. I'm sure a little bit of agonizing over the decision. Talk about the first couple of weeks of buying it and what that was like.
Well, so we committed to buying it, I think, about the beginning of March. By the time we had a contract and everything drawn up, I think we put a final date of April 1st of takeover. And then, so I was able in March to spend some time with Kevin and Marsh out at the old store, kind of learn some of the processes and things. In the contract, we also put in there that they were going to stay on for a month to help out. Mm-hmm. And I think they stayed on all of April and May. I think it was 2 months. And I mean, that was worth everything we paid for the business right there, just having their knowledge for those 2 months, just with the equipment, the design programs, everything that they've known over 37 years, trying to teach it in 2 months. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to be able to keep a business that's been around in the Riverbend for 37 years to continue that legacy. That's got to be important to you guys.
Yeah, it is. And we know what Kevin and Marsha, they put their life into the business. They really did, and they cared about their customers. And we still have a good relationship with them. They stop in the store and visit from time to time. And, I'll say, oh, hey, your favorite customer so-and-so was in, and then we'll talk about them and stuff. So, oh, yeah. And people still come in and ask about them and how they're doing, if we see them ever. And, yeah, it's kind of neat. You're kind of a nice part of the community with that,
And just thanks to them, I hope they get to watch this for all they did for the community and running a business for all those years. And they were a key part of
they were.
The community.
Everybody went to B&B.
Right.
It was, there's other places that have popped up and stuff, but they maintained a good reputation.
What was the biggest challenge the first couple of weeks or first even month or two?
Really,
maybe biggest surprise.
I mean, probably the challenge would have been you're just overwhelmed, with at our ages taking on this task of learning all these new pieces of equipment, technology, computer programs, designing software. And, if I was 25, probably would have picked it up real quick. In fact, my daughter, we always laugh. She went out to the store with me in March, to the old store, and trained with Kevin some. And Kevin and I would joke. He goes, how come I tell your daughter something one time and she's got it down pat, and I'm still telling you the same thing 2 weeks later, and you're still trying to figure it out?
This thing goes a little slower the older you go.
I said, man, when you're 23, you got a sponge up there,
Yeah, you got it.
And so Kevin and I joke about that a lot, but I think the learning curve was probably one of the biggest challenges we had. I think one of our biggest surprises was how good that current customer base was. I mean, we felt it was probably pretty strong, but I think it was a lot stronger and a lot more people tied to them than we even thought,
I suppose one of the challenges that you had to think about when buying it is just, the t-shirt business, the promotional, all businesses.
Right.
A lot of it going to the digital age and going to online. So how do you balance that?
I tell you what, we get a lot of, and we just had a customer today. They ordered 12 shirts online. They're for an event, just for a basketball team, but they needed them to start their season tomorrow night. They ordered them. All the sizing was wrong. The print was wrong on the shirts. They did it online. And I even talked to them before we did this, and they were talking about the website, and I looked at it with them. I said, hey, that's a good price. That's, everything else. And, so she came in today and she's like, hey, we can't wear these tomorrow night. So luckily we were able to order just the plain shirts in for them, get them tomorrow, give them to them, let them wear them as warm-ups, bring them back to us, then we'll get them labeled and logoed for the next game.
Right. I mean, that's the kind of differentiator.
Right. And that is. And we get it all the time. I mean, gal came in with her husband runs a baseball team, and he ordered 14 hats. Well, they got 2 new players. They need 2. They tried to order 2 more, and they said, no, we got a minimum 12.
Right.
She's like, can
Don't
you
need
make 2
20.
hats to match these? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. You know, and I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard, my husband's never ordering online again. She goes, this is ridiculous, you know. So I think we're getting a good established in the community with our service, and, you know, they're understanding what we do with the, you know, the small onesie twosie type stuff, and, you know, we'll accommodate their needs. So
For those that don't know it, and the name does kind of give it away, but B&B Custom Tees and Apparel, what products and services do you guys offer?
yeah, so we've kind of expanded out. So Kevin and Marcia did a lot of t-shirt type business, and then Marcia did a ton of embroidery work. And we've kind of expanded out. We've added laser engraving in the last couple months. We've also expanded the apparel side of the business. You know, a lot of their business was probably based on like your Gildan, kind of your basic t-shirts, basic sweatshirts and type stuff. Our wives have gone out and handpicked a bunch of different apparel, kind of upscale sweatshirts, upscale hoodies, upscale t-shirts, some nicer brands, nicer materials, and people appreciate it. They come in and they're like, oh wow, you know, you got some really nice stuff in here, and they don't mind paying those few extra dollars when it's a nice quality item, you know. So
Right. Obviously, talk about some of the other changes that you decided to make upon purchasing it.
Well, we really, at first, we didn't make many changes. At that point, it was more or less, let's try to keep our customer base and take care of everybody. You know, we've kept a lot of the same policies in place. Like the POS system, we've updated the POS system. It's tied into our online store now. So we have gone online with things now. You can buy directly from our website. We got all that hooked up and going, which they were store only, you know.
Sure.
You know, and it was more or less, you talk to Kevin, it was just like you know, I was 65 or 6 when this all started going on, and he goes, I ain't changing at that point in my life, you know. And with us taking it over, we felt that was the perfect time, and with our young daughters and our young sons, that, you know, they're the perfect help for stuff like that. You tell them we need to get something out on social media, and boom, it's out in a minute, you know.
The previous owner of the Big Z, Sam Stem, a good friend of mine, and who I purchased it from, he said, and he retired from running the day-to-day 7 or 8 years ago. He said, you know, he knew it was time when these new innovations and things that he would have been excited about 20 years ago started coming up, and he was he just didn't want to do it.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I can definitely see there's been a lot of change in that industry in the last, you know, probably 6, 7 years even. And we went down to North Carolina shortly after purchasing the business, and there's a graphics show down there. It's a weekend, it's a 3-day deal. And you're just in there with people that they're printing companies, they make equipment, just everything you can think of, products to sell in your store, and anything that you can think of in the graphics and printing industry, they're there. And we spent 3 days talking to these people and just trying to soak up anything that we possibly could at that point, you know.
One thing I've generally found about the small business community is that they want to help other small businesses succeed. It's kind of a cult, really.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm proud to be a member. So
yeah, because we went up to Grafton Vineyards and did the Riverbend Growth Association had a little thing up there at open house, and we went up there and set a table up there. Fitness for the Soul just had something out at Nautilus last night. We went out there from 4 to 7, set up a table, and it's just nice to get to know these other small business people, and it's good for business too. You know, it's good for business and the community both.
I mean, those local partnerships are so vital, and you know, small businesses are just so important to a community. That's kind of what this show is about, is, you know, helping bring awareness to that.
And, exactly.
What have been some of the struggles for you? What's something that's been a kind of a roadblock, maybe?
Probably being a little bit busier than we would have expected, which is a good problem.
But yeah,
my dad always tells me, don't ever complain about having for business, because you could be out looking for it. And I'm like, well, you're right, but you know, so I think juggling our careers and doing this at the same time has been probably one of the bigger challenges. Just when we start getting several large orders in at a time, but like I say, we got good part-time help. My daughter, Sean and Tisha's daughter, both are willing to come up and help whenever they can. And we do all our designing now. We save everything to a cloud, so I can email their daughter Ashlyn or my daughter Jenna and say, hey, can you guys clean this file up, get it ready to print? They can open it on the cloud, design it, get it ready, text me back and say, Dad, it's ready to print. It's like, that's invaluable there. That's,
Sure. Kind of makes you feel good too that your family wants to be involved in it. And,
yeah, they do.
They want to help and they're interested in it.
Right. Well, it's the same thing because we both have, so we've got 30-year-old boys that are within 3 weeks of each other. We've got our middle boys are 1 year apart, and then our 23-year-old girls are 3 weeks apart again. So we've done a lot with the Emmerichs over the years, sports and everything with everybody being the same age. And that was one of the things when we talked about moving the shop. We had a ton of equipment to move, ton of big, heavy equipment. All 6 kids were there, didn't even have to ask.
Well, tell us about the new location.
Well, it's got a lot more retail space.
Right.
At the old location, there was a lot more back room, a little bit less retail space, and it was dated a little bit. We were going to have to do some things there to kind of update it to do what we wanted it to be. And we ran across this location where we're at 237 East Del Mar, right next door to Target. And the place was basically move-in ready. Kind of the style now is like a concrete floor. It had like a buffed concrete floor. It had really nice decor inside. Counters already in place. It's just like all we had to basically do was move our equipment in and go. So it couldn't have been a better fit for us.
Very cool.
Kept the moving costs down. And,
right.
And everything. So it really worked out good there. And like I say, and with the kids' help, they'll hook the computers up for us and carry all the heavy equipment. And, it was like, man, this is great. You know?
I knew we had these kids for some reason.
I knew there was a reason. It took us 30 years to figure it out. But we did figure it out finally.
This is a good question, I think, for you because you're relatively new to it. What advice would you give to somebody thinking about doing what you just did and purchasing your business or going into business for themselves?
Yeah, we've had a very good story so far of purchasing an existing business. We talk about all the time if we were to have started something like this up, and I think in today's world it's tough. If we would have said, hey, let's just go rent this retail space out here and let's put some shirts in here and start a shirt business. I think that would have been very tough. Anytime that you could go into business and take somebody for like Kevin and Marsha that had the 37-year reputation that they had and follow that's worth a lot.
A lot of value there, for sure.
There's a ton of value there, definitely, for sure.
Anything that we missed that you want to make sure we touch on or highlight?
No, not really. No.
If people want to find out more information about you guys or stop by and see you, you mentioned the physical location, where else can they find you?
Yeah, they can find us on Facebook, Instagram, phone number 618-433-0443. Like I say, we're pretty much available anytime. We've got a cell phone that the phone comes to after hours. So pretty much we do onesies, twosies, we do big orders, whatever, people take pictures of something on Etsy and, come in and say, hey, can you make me this? Sure. No awesome. Problem. We'll recreate it and make it for them.
That's why it's custom.
That's why it's custom. Right. Yep. Same with all of the engraving stuff. You come in, pick your cup or your Yeti out or whatever, and we engrave on it whatever you want. So.
Well, yeah. I'm really happy that you guys purchased it or keeping it going for the Riverbend area. James Robinson, B&B Custom Tees. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.